Dean Moore, we used to take the seniors in our youth group on a retreat just to do some discernment about how they wanted to lead the youth group, and we'd ask them what they felt called to do. And most of the answers were prosaic. We're going to be more loving, or we're going to be more inclusive of ninth graders. But one year, in a way that really was, I'm ashamed to say, shocking to me, they said, we're dying and there's no one to talk to about it. Mm. And I flirted a bit with the idea that this was adolescent melodrama, but it became quite apparent they were suffering greatly and across many different horizons of difficulty and suffering, notwithstanding the privileged setting of their home. How does a youth minister both be more attentive to the suffering of the young people and then be a presence of God and good news in the midst of that suffering?
To be a presence of God, to mediate the holy with the young people is probably the first wave. And the second wave is to allow that presence to be open to whatever the young people want to share. I've in the last 10 years, I've been conducting research on youth through interviews, actually the last 15 years, through interviews and focus groups. And one of the things that strikes me is the many different ways that youth suffer. And much more than you see on the surface. Young people who are bullied carried that within them, sometimes from the time they're 5 until they have the courage to say it when they're 12 or 13 or 18. Youth who have who've had an experience of dislocation, like a young man, for example, who was Latino in background, but moved to a different part of the country with his family, where he was the only Latino in his school. That dislocation just jarred him. He had no way to deal with it. He was a capable young man, and so on the surface, people didn't necessarily see this kind of suffering. And then young people lose maybe 6 family members and close friends in a period of a year or two, which happens. Just death by illness, death by accidents, and so on. That seeps into them. Young people who do volunteer work, who go on mission trips. For example, young people who've gone on mission trips to New Orleans after the hurricane in New Orleans, but young people more recently who've gone on mission trips to Texas and to Florida and to Northern California, and it'll soon be Southern California. Those young people have a sense of suffering that they've taken into themselves. It's not their personal suffering in the sense that they've lost their home, or that they are without a place, they're without a job, or are without a place to live, or have lost family members. They have been up close to it so that it has become their own. So young people suffer in so many different ways that I've become convinced that one of the primary goals of youth ministry is to create spaces where young people can talk about their suffering and where they will be honored for it. If someone is bullied, they need to be taken seriously. The fact that the other kids may think, well, I mean, obviously this person is bullied because this person has a disability or this person is a little bit different, that's bunk. Youth ministry has to do with creating the spaces where everyone's dignity is held sacred and where everyone's story of suffering, as well as their stories of joy and celebration, are held as precious gifts. And that then allows young people to process it, to make meaning of it, and to make new decisions. A young person may eventually make a decision that I don't have to live with the sense that I'm a bullied person the rest of my life, and that I'm bullied because there's something wrong with me. I don't have to embrace that as who I am. But that takes a community, and it takes mentors. Not just one mentor. That's one of the reasons why youth ministry has to be collective. collaborative, because sometimes one mentor can be a meaningful source of hope and fun for one group of young people and not really relate very well with others. But if you have a group of people working together as mentors and they respect one another's dignity and they understand that together they are trying to build the dignity of the whole community of young people, then you have the possibility that suffering can become a source of meaning and a source of hope. But that requires decision. Hope is an active decision. Hope just doesn't drop. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it drops down, and it's like a God gift. But very often, what drops down simply puts the pile back on you to make a decision to live with hope. And that kind of action requires a community of support for young people and a community that honors their suffering and recognizes it as for what they recognize it to be,